everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. I am doing something a little bit scary this week, and I am diving into an era that I have never done before, and that is the 1930s. I've actually somehow never done what you would consider like 1930s fashion before. The closest thing that I have done is this, which is a cosplay from Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day, which if you haven't seen that movie, that's your homework for after this video because it's one of the best movies of all time. But that movie takes place in 1939, so it's not really what you would think of as typical 1930s fashions. And the reason that I have not done 1930s before is because it's kind of body hugging. And as a plus size person, that has always made me just really nervous. But right now I am about to be performing in Annie. We're going into our tech week right now. And Annie takes place in 1933. And it's just kind of put me in a mood to try the 1930s. I'm not making this as a costume for the show or anything. I'm pretty sure a costumer has that all underhand. But I just kind of felt like, why don't we try the 1930s? Why don't we try sewing that and see how it will work out on a plus size body? Because even when I look at like other people, other costumers online who have sewn 1930s, most of them are straight size, and I'm not seeing a lot of examples of plus size people attempting the 1930s. And I think that's because for the majority of us, it's a scary era. And so what I'm talking about when I mean that it's like body hugging, etc., this is just a pretty good example of some 1930s fashion that I'm going to have up here. These are all like advertisements or other patterns. And as you can see, the skirts are really slim to the hips, and a lot of them are high-waisted as well. The 1930s waist was often a little bit higher than the natural waist, and it doesn't have that like nice skirt flare that we get later in the 1940s and especially in the 1950s. It also doesn't have like the droopy kind of hide the body look of the 1920s. The 1930s was really about like showing off a slim figure. So I have been collecting a few advertisements and stuff for stout women, which is what they called plus size women in the 1930s. It's such a great term. I really love it. No, I hate it. And the problem is that when we look at these types of advertisements, they kind of make it look like they're trying to hide these women. Like these are not as interesting of designs or patterns or anything like that that straight size women got. Wow, that sounds familiar. For like pretty much the entire 20th century, it was all like, let's hide these women away because they don't matter and they don't fit the norm. Whereas now at least I feel like we've kind of come to embrace like anyone can wear anything, which is good. The 1930s was not about that. However, I'm gonna try it anyway. So this is kind of a scary project, but I have a bunch of time this weekend because it's Thanksgiving and I'm not really doing anything besides seeing theater and decorating my house for Christmas. So I've got the majority of 4 days where we're off from rehearsal, off from work, and I'm gonna make a 1930s dress and we're gonna see how this goes. So I am using Simplicity 8248 as my main dress pattern. That's this one right here. And really I am doing this view, not this one. I actually really like the lines of View A, especially this version that I found on So Decades Ago's blog online. I'll link to that down below, but that is by far the best version of View A that I found. I think it is so, so cute. However, in my research of the 1930s, I'm just not finding a lot of other examples of that sort of like cut up bodice with lots of horizontal seams going across. So I'm just going to do View B because I do find a lot of examples of like a little bit of gathering here and then gathering again into the waist. However, I am not going to use the skirt from this pattern. I am going to keep the pockets, probably going to make them a little bit bigger so they're a little bit more functional and a little bit more to scale on my body because for some reason, while the other pattern pieces change, the pocket sizes don't change. By the way, speaking of sizes, this pattern is extremely size exclusive. Like Simplicity doesn't want plus size people to do 1930s patterns either because this only goes up to a size 20 and it's a very fitted pattern and size 20 is like nowhere near hip size of what I need. I mean, we're not scaling this up to like a 24, 26, etc. I don't even know what size we get to when we're talking about the hip size. We are literally adding like 10 inches to the hips. That said, I'm not actually using that pattern for the skirt. I'm using another completely size exclusive pattern from Simplicity for the skirt because I like this skirt a lot better. This one just kind of kicks out a little bit more and it has more seam lines. So you can see in the line drawing, we've got seams in a lot of places, and that is going to give me more ability to size up the skirt and to make it curvier because I have, what is it? I've got like a 12 or 13 inch difference between my waist and my hips, and the 1930s didn't believe that was humanly possible. So we're doing a lot of sizing up for hips, but very minimal sizing up for waist. Waist on these patterns, I'm sizing up to a size 24. And honestly, bust on these patterns, I'm sizing up to a size 24. Like, it's not that much. But hips on these patterns, again, I'm adding upwards of 10 inches. So I've already kind of done all of my, like, what I need to add to each pattern piece. And that way I can just get into cutting it out. I'm not gonna make a mock-up of the skirt, even though I maybe should. I have a lot of this fabric. This is the fabric that I'm using. It is a wool blend. Honestly, I am not sure what it is blended with. It's not polyester because it doesn't bead. It could be a rayon? I'm really not sure. I did a burn test on it. It is hard to catch fire at first, but the threads on one direction actually catch fire quite easily. It's just that the threads in the other direction of the weave want to extinguish that fire because they're wool. But again, even the ones that do catch fire easily, they don't bead at the bottom, which is how you tell if something's polyester because those fibers are melting. They're not burning. But yeah, it's got a really nice drape to it. It's been sitting in my stash for ages. I'm really hoping, I threw it in the wash yesterday, and I'm hoping that the like dust line that had been sitting at the top of my bolt is fully gone. I can't see it at all, so I'm pretty sure that it is. I was worried it was a fade line. I think it was just dust. But I'm going to dive into cutting this out in the skirt because again, if I screw up, I'll just cut more of it. I have so much of this fabric. I think I had originally gotten this from maybe like the bargain basement or something at Costume College. I honestly don't know. It's been in my stash for ages. But the bodice I am going to make a mock-up of that can hopefully just turn into lining. I just tend to make bodice mock-ups because there's a lot more fitting that has to be done in a bodice. Even when we're talking about a fairly fitted skirt, there is still more fitting in the bodice. So I am going to do that. Sleeve-wise, there's two different sleeves in this pattern. I'm not 100% positive which one I'm going for yet, but I am leaning towards sleeve A, which is the larger, more puffy sleeve. I know that when we look at the pattern envelope, we can't tell much of a difference, but this sleeve is just a little bit puffier than that sleeve, and I just like that look a little bit better. Now, I am not sizing it up to a size 24 everywhere because I have read reviews of this online. The shoulders on this pattern, like every Simplicity pattern, are very wide to begin with. So I am keeping those at a size 20 and hoping that a size 20 won't actually be too wide. I am also not increasing this in length very much because again, the reviews on this pattern are talking about the waist sitting a little too low for a 1930s pattern, and that if you really want it to be 1930s silhouette, you need to actually shorten this pattern. So I am increasing the center front length by 0.5 inches and that's it. And actually in the back, instead of sizing up to like what the size 24 length would be, I'm again keeping it a size 20 because I held up that pattern piece to my back and it seemed to be perfect. I am sway backed, and so often with a back I don't need to increase the length, but in this case I'm in a way decreasing the length since I'm not even sizing it up to what I otherwise would be. So I'm going to get the skirts cut out, I'm going to get a bodice mock-up cut out, and we're going to see how this goes together. Oh, and if you came here from last week's video, which is my tutor Jane, I am putting that project just on pause for a week or so because I want to do more research into bodice pattern shapes before I just start cutting things out willy-nilly. So you will see that project coming back very, very soon. So hopefully I haven't gone too big with these pockets, but I've increased it by 1 inch on every side because this actually has all of the seam allowance that gets taken out of it anyway. So this was just like so small. I mean, look at my hand with this pocket. Now I have a pocket that I can put my hand into. I think I can fit my phone in just barely sideways, so that will be good. And hopefully it won't look too ridiculously large, but these are going to get sewn right sides together along this whole curved edge here, and then turned so that the only like raw edge is that. And then this part up here, I believe, just gets bound. And I think that's how we get the contrast on there, because if you look at the pattern envelope, we've got that white contrast. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do white on mine as well, because I like the idea of the blue and the white, but it's possible I might choose something else. Probably going to be white though. I have sewn this long seam, and as you can see over here, this then gets trimmed down really close to the seam allowance, and I clip my curve all along here, and now this is going to get turned right sides out. This is what it looks like with the binding on the top of the pocket. I did just decide to use white bias tape, which is this wide single fold. This is what it looks like from the inside. It says to sew this down by hand. Normally I would, but frankly, I'm just doing this by machine. So if you look really closely, you can see the stitches right along the ditch there, but frankly, that is really, really close that you have to look. So I think that it looks really good from even a foot away. And now I just have to do the other one, and then I can apply them to the front of the skirt. The way the skirt currently looks like this. So I've got the 3 back panels sewn together and the 3 front panels sewn together. I'm waiting to do the side seams until I attach those pockets. One side, probably the right side, because I usually prefer right side zip, will have a zipper that connects from the bodice into the skirt. This side will just get sewn fully together. So best laid plans and all of that. It is now 11:47 p.m. on Saturday night. I last spoke to you on Thursday, and I have not been in the sewing room since then. Yeah, I have, however, done a bunch of yard work, decorated my entire house for Christmas, which looks like this, so it's a lot. Already seen 2 shows, 2 musicals. I'm seeing another one tomorrow, and I also went to a Hobbit tea, which was really fun. Here's a little picture from that. And so all of that has led to me not actually having sewing time this weekend, apparently. So I think I'm gonna work for the next hour until I get like tired enough to go to bed. And then tomorrow, I think I should have maybe 2 or 3 hours to work before I go to see that show. However, I still have to finish editing last week's video that should have already been edited. So we're gonna try and finish as much as possible of this week, but it's starting to feel like this might be a 2-week project because I didn't have the time that I thought I had. And also I know I have very little time next week, so maybe it would be good to just finish it then. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking, and I am going to go put the binding on the other pocket because I still haven't done that, and sew the pockets on. We have pockets. They look really cute. I used the guide of the pattern that actually goes with this bodice to place the pockets because it does show it on the pattern. Again, I made mine bigger, so it didn't quite line up. I basically like centered mine over that point. But yeah, they look really cute, and they are top stitched if you look at them closely. And so now it is time to add this to the back of the skirt. So the good news is now that I've done all of that, because I, didn't do a mock-up, it fits. I am holding it over here because this is where the zip is going to go into, along with like up into the bodice. But yeah, I think it actually has a really nice fit. It's hard to tell because I'm wearing it over a dress right now and I don't feel like taking off my dress, but I think that's a really good fit. So let's go ahead and do a bodice mock-up. Well, this is a nice change. I think it's perfect. Like the 1930s fit bodice, this bodice specifically, is not supposed to be like your darted fitted bodice. So this has some easing right here that I haven't pulled up the gathers yet because, I'm holding the side closed. But I will have a little bit of gathering going on right here. I've already pulled up just a little bit like randomly in the back, the gathering there. And then obviously we've got the gathers here into the yoke. The yoke fits really nicely. I think I need to narrow the shoulder. So this was already cut to that size 20 as opposed to a 24 shoulder, but I need to narrow that further. I think it's the only change that I need to make, and that is thrilling to me. Like really, wow, yeah, I mean, I think it's right. You guys, I haven't had a perfectly fitted mock-up in so long. This is amazing. So I'm going to narrow the shoulder and I'm going to cut this out in the wool blend and we're going to put together this bodice. Look at those nice shoulders. That is much better. The seam allowance will obviously still come away from this as well. Once I did the shoulders, I also then realized that there was just a little bit of gappage going on right here. And although, yes, it is kind of a blousey blouse top to this dress, it was just like too much gappage and easily fixable because there's a seam right here. So all I did was I took about a 1/2 inch of the vertical height right here out, tapered it to about there-ish, and I think that's a much better fit. I mean, I'm not holding it closed right now, but look at that. All right, let's go cut this out in the blue wool blend. Actually, time check, it's 1:30 a.m. So I'm gonna cut it out tomorrow and we'll see how much of this I can actually get accomplished tomorrow. I have my pieces all flatlined now with the serger, and the next step is to kind of prepare and sew on this little back facing part, because the back of the neck is actually slit down and then I think it's buttoned up at the top. Obviously that is so you can get your head into it, because otherwise it's a quite tight neckline with the collar. And I had just kind of done this in the mock-up, but it should have this little facing piece. So the first step is that the edges get sewn in and stitched down. You are supposed to do this with interfacing. However, you're not actually supposed to have lining in this. This bodice doesn't call for lining. And I feel like now that I have the flat lining in here, I don't want the extra stiffness of interfacing just in this one section. So I'm going to skip the interfacing and just fold and stitch down the edges, and then kind of stitch this in place from the other side. Obviously right sides together, I'm just showing you with one hand, but you stitch it in place like around this and then kind of flip it to the inside so that you get that area, the slit that will be down the back, nice and faced already before you assemble the rest of the bodice. Here is our nicely finished neckline. I decided to do it a little bit differently in that I did top stitching here along the outside edge, and then I sewed this down with a whip stitch by hand. Neither of those steps were in the instructions, but I thought it gave it a really nice clean finish from the outside. Well, I have the base of the bodice assembled, and I have the collar pieces cut out except for the interfacing, but annoyingly it is now time for me to run off and see my third show of the weekend, which is kind of frustrating because as much as I do want to go see this show, I would much rather stay home and potentially finish this outfit, because in the 5 hours that I will be away driving up into Seattle and seeing this show and driving back, I could probably finish this entire project. And instead, I'll be getting home at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m., something like that, which I guess is actually 6 hours, not 5 hours, and not finishing this project tonight. So most likely this is going to go into 2 videos unless I somehow miraculously come home with time on my hands. Future Rebecca here. I did decide to split this project into 2 videos. There was just too much stuff going on this Thanksgiving weekend to be able to get it all done, which I just did not anticipate. So if you come back next week, you will see the finishing of the whole dress, and we will pick up right where we left off with this video. But hopefully you've enjoyed this project so far. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at LaterBeccaFashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Kim, and the Dowager Duchess Isabel Thompson. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you'll have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!